Hello, welcome to Miss IJ's Kids Inclusive Podcast. My name is Anyaoku-Popoola, and you can call me IJ. I will be your host. On this podcast, we'll be talking about the stigma individuals with special needs face on a day-to-day basis on the continent of Africa. We'll be bringing to you professionals in the disability field, sharing resources and information that can benefit any educator, parent, caregiver, and community with persons with disabilities. Join me on this journey in spreading hope and resilience as we advocate for inclusive education on the beautiful continent of Africa. Hi, Rosie Watts. Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to be part of the Miss IJ's Inclusive Education Podcast. So I want my guests to know who you are and what you do. So if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and who Rosie Watts is.
Of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on this podcast. It's such a wonderful opportunity to talk about the thing I'm most passionate about. So thanks for having me. So I'm Rosie, I'm 27, and I currently live in the UK, and I'm doing a master's in developmental psychology and psychopathology. But I'm very passionate about supporting children and young people with disabilities, neurodevelopmental disorders, mental health, both in the UK and in Ghana.
Nice. Well, and I that's what brings me here to my connection with you, is to tell us more about what it is that you do. So the name of this interview today is Doing Good Work in Ghana. And I actually wanted to ask you why Ghana, and for you to talk a little bit about the organization, which I think you are part of the founder or the founder. And I want people to know about that. So tell us a little bit why you chose Ghana.
So it was really just opportunity. When I was at university, I was studying, and then in my first summer, I wanted to do a trip somewhere. And I was kind of deciding between climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and doing some charity work in Ghana. And thank goodness I went for the Ghana trip, because I can't imagine what my life would be like now. So I ended up going to Ghana for 6 weeks in the summer, and it was an incredible experience, incredible country. And I spent some time working in an orphanage with some children with special needs, disabilities, and built a sensory room. And I met this young boy called Paul. And that was the moment where I knew I was going to be coming back to Ghana to, support these kids. And Paul was just an incredible boy. He has neurofibromatosis. Mm-hmm. So he has these tumors growing on his face. Mm-hmm. And he was blind, but he was so full of character. He was so happy for any kind of interactions. He just loved to dance. He was, of course, completely independent at getting around the home, but nobody knew why he was blind, what his condition was. So we ended up working with the orphanage for a few years, and we got Paul some medical care in Ghana, but unfortunately there wasn't a lot that could have been done at that time for his condition in Ghana. So amazingly, a couple in America read about him. They came over to Ghana, spent time getting to know him, and he now lives in America with his adoptive family.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really incredible. I still keep in contact and visit him often, and he's just won an award for Sportsman of the Year at his school for vision impairment.
That's amazing. Oh, and it's so funny because I know we're getting to the thick of the conversation, but I'm okay with it going organically, because we're so amazed when people come to, for instance, places in Africa, and Ghana. And isn't it interesting how you show up for one thing and then somehow you are called to do something else, and you just know instantly, this is why I was created to make a difference in this way. And I kind of shared the same story too, because with special needs, I didn't go to school. I actually had a master's in doing something totally different. And I substitute teachers in a class. I was a substitute teacher. And I just realized this is my life's calling. And how amazing. And I think, we spoke offline about your relationship with Paul and how he is now in the United States. So what's the name of your organization again, just so the listeners will know?
So the name of our organization is Family First Ghana. Okay. So back when I was working with Paul, we had a very small little organization called Helping Paul. And then when Paul moved to Ghana, when Paul moved to America, sorry, we started working with families in the community who had kids with special needs. And it was so eye-opening because I'd worked in this orphanage before, and there was a lot of kids with special needs in orphanages in Ghana. And when I went out into the community, I realized there were so many families who genuinely loved and really wanted to care for their kids, but they just didn't have the knowledge or awareness of, and there wasn't stuff available for their kids in Kumasi.
Wow.
So that's kind of what really started Family First, was meeting these families who desperately wanted help for their children, and it wasn't there.
Okay, so I need to backtrack a little bit. When you went, I'm going to put you on the spot because I need to put this whole story in context. Also, talking about our topic. When you went to Ghana, were you an undergrad or were you just starting your master's?
So I was an undergrad. I was in my first year at undergrad.
Okay, so let's just pause right there. You were, I almost want to say young. I think I'm fairly, I'm in my 40s and I'm okay to say that. But you were young and you were drawn to actually go and make a difference. And I think that is such a big deal. I think we have a lot of millennials, if I can put you in that bracket, where you decided to find your passion, or you found your passion and you ran with it, and you're actually making a difference. And I just have to let the listeners know that this is our second time in having a conversation, but I'm so inspired by your story, especially in this field. So Family First Ghana is doing good work in Ghana. And again, Ghanaians and Nigerians are like brother and sister. What is it that you would like us to know about all that you guys have done so far? The story of Paul is very inspiring. And I think for our listeners in Africa and in Nigeria and in Ghana, would love to hear your story and to know that there are people like you who may not necessarily be in, officials, places like in the government, and you're just an ordinary person who saw a need and you met a need. Tell us more about the organization and what you've been able to accomplish in Ghana right now, because I think it will be very inspiring and encouraging for parents and families in other countries in Africa to know.
Yeah, so I think as well, a big part of our organization is very much, like you say, working on the ground with the families, supporting them, but also empowering Ghanaians to be able to have the awareness and the education. So, I mean, I live in the UK. I tend to go to Ghana for a few months every year, but all the work out in Ghana is run by our incredible Ghanaian physiotherapists, speech and language therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, school educators. They're doing the work on the ground, and they're so passionate about developing the awareness. So I think, for the organization, we work with families, but we also try and broaden that. So yes. Of course, we have the child with the disability or the special needs, mental health conditions. Then we support their family so that they're accessing therapy, medical care, nutritional support, whatever the child's kind of medical needs. But then we branch out, we go to the communities, we work with schools to try and raise awareness, so that child is accepted in their community. They can go to church and attend and be accepted and understood. And I think that makes a massive difference for the family as well. We also work with some local carpenters. So we've just started a project a few years ago developing specialist equipment from local resources. So we use kind of wood to make standing frames, bamboo walking frames, so that these kids have the opportunity to be independent and they're not just sitting at home, not being able to go out because, they're too big to carry on their backs. They have wheelchairs, they have these walking frames that are all made locally for that child. It's just such an opportunity for the family to be able to go out with their kid. Right. It really is. Yeah.
And when you say carried and I'm guessing either a parent or someone who helps out with the children with disabilities, because I also would love the listeners to know more about that whole story and how, for instance, transportation is a big deal and maybe a challenge. So we talked offline about, families trying to get their children to school. And if you could just share a little bit about a story of maybe one or two of the children that you have worked with and families who've had this challenge, just so that they understand the context. Because here in the UK and the United States and other countries, we have transportation systems, also known as related services, to help students with disabilities. But back in some places, in, for instance, Ghana and maybe Nigeria, we don't have that. And to just, give us a visual of what those challenges look like with the families that you have worked with.
Yeah, of course. And it is one of the biggest challenges, I would say. The roads are not accessible often for wheelchairs, even if the child is lucky enough to have had a wheelchair. There's a lot of open gutters and potholes that make it really challenging. The local transport can't, have wheelchair users. So a lot of the families that we meet are still, if they're taking their child out of the house, they're still trying to carry them on their backs. And we've met families who are carrying their 12, 13-year-old child on their back, walking 20, 30 minutes to try and get them to a school, or, taking them an hour on public transport on their backs to try and get them to a hospital for physiotherapy, or to get them to somewhere that might accept them to go to school, because, not all local schools will accept that child. So it's a real strain for families. And I think the concern is, as the child gets older and bigger, how that parent will transport their child out of the house. And, getting the child a wheelchair is one option. But if a lot of the area is not equipped for wheelchairs, it's not always that simple.
Okay. And so these raise up a lot of points to how we need to bridge the gap between us not just getting down on a local level and helping, but also how can we help our governments create policy. So you shared a story of a student who was accepted in a school, and I would love you to talk a little bit about that, because that is a big deal when we have a child with disabilities accepted in a mainstream school, and your organization was able to provide a special education teacher to come in and help the student 2 to 3 times a week. That's a huge accomplishment that I really want the listeners to understand how that even happened, and how, the government in Ghana really partnered and worked with your organization to make that happen. And how can we keep having that happen in other schools? Because that's the meaning of this podcast, is inclusion. How do we do that across the board, all over the continent of Africa? I know I'm a big dreamer, but I know it's possible. So what did you guys use, and what's your blueprint that we can share with everyone?
Yeah, it was a really incredible story, actually. We met Patrick over a year ago, and he was 15. And, his mum took such amazing care of him and loved him, and always, were teaching him new skills. But she hadn't had the awareness of physiotherapy or anything like that. So she'd always tried kind of more spiritual healing with him and traditional methods. And she'd recently found out about physio. So she'd started taking him to Confanochi Teaching Hospital for physio. And that's where we met him. And he was incredible. His mind, he was so intelligent. He has this incredible mathematical mind. And so we started offering some physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, and tutoring. But he missed out on the social side, and he was a very sociable boy. He just needed to be challenged in a school setting. So luckily, through some contacts, we found a local school, and the head teacher was, yes, we're willing to accept kids with special needs. However, we don't have a ramp, and we don't, our teachers might not have time to support him very much. So we sat down with the school to kind of make a plan. So we discussed, because, he was coming up 16 and he'd never been at school. So we thought, he's going to struggle a bit. He's going to get tired. So we'll start him on this part-time table. We'll build a ramp for the school. And actually, it was the school. We sat down with the school, wrote a letter to the Minister of Education in Ghana. So it all came from the school. The school submitted the letter to the Minister of Education, and within 2 weeks, there was a special needs teacher assigned to the school who now works with Patrick one-to-one. So he was attending 3 mornings a week, and he was so happy. And I don't want to go 3 mornings a week. I want to go 4 mornings. He started 4 mornings. I don't want to go 4 mornings. I want to go 5 days.
Yes.
He just loves it. He has friends. He's learning. He has support in the classroom. And, he's doing really well. I mean, of course, there's still a few challenges, like mum has to get him a taxi from home to school because, there's no public transport and it's too far to walk. So that's a cost for the family. But he loves it and it's worth it because mum can see how much he's learning, developing, and he's so happy.
That's an amazing story. And honestly, I have to really applaud, Ghana as a country that really jumped to the opportunity to help this one child. And it's a big deal, like we said, because we have a transportation issue and we have not having special education teachers. And within 2 weeks, that was provided. And even the school being willing to work with the family and see what they could do, like really go outside of the norm. A lot of times we have to be paradigm shifters. Our culture may not necessarily know much about special education, but the fact that, the country and the government and the Ministry of Education in Ghana was able to work with the school, that's a big deal. And that's a story that we are hoping to just light a fire, all over Africa and make those changes on a policy level where here's the school and here's the organization and you guys found a way to make it work. That's where the possibility lies.
Yeah, and I think it's really fantastic that it comes from the school. The school was requesting for this special needs teacher. It gives the government an opportunity to see that the schools want this. The schools want to accept. We've had more and more schools reaching out to us, or, we've talked to more schools that said, yeah, we would accept kids with special needs, but we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources, we don't have accessible classrooms. Our classrooms have a lot of children in them, so children with sensory difficulties won't manage it. They want the kids to attend, they want it. It's now how we bridge those gaps and break down those barriers.
Right. And when I do research, I'm so happy you shared that story because people in Africa need to know that there's a place and there's a model that we can look at. I love the fact that you said sensory rooms in the beginning of our conversation, because I'm a trained severe and profound special education teacher. And, culturally, sometimes when we have students or children that have disabilities where maybe they're nonverbal or maybe they hit or they bite or, they have, sensory regulation issues because we don't have the training and the teachers. Because of our culture, we kind of just streamline it into something spiritual or something that needs to be prayed off. So not taken away from all of that, I think our job here is just to focus on. So if you have a headache, you take Tylenol or you take, paracetamol or whatever, to help with the headache. If you have a problem, you go to a doctor and he gives you a diagnosis. It doesn't take away from the spiritual. What we're talking about right now is the practical. That's our job. We're talking about the practical. So he hits, he bites, he has movements that you may not fully understand. What do we do with that? That's where our training comes in. And when you said sensory room, I was so excited because I lived for a good sensory room. When I walk into a sensory room, my eyes light up. I like touching and moving because all this is part of education. And I'm glad that you're able to do that in Ghana. I really am. I'm glad.
Yeah, I think sensory education is a massive part of, education for so many kids, young children, as well as older children with disabilities. It's a big part of learning these, how we see the world through our senses. We have done a few sensory rooms so far, mostly in the kind of special needs schools that have been set up in Kumasi, the government special needs schools, and one inclusive school that we work with that's a private school. That's a really wonderful school. And they see the benefits straight away of that sensory input. The child is more regulated, calmer. It's just, it's so incredible. Yeah, I think it's such an important part of, education.
So what do you think about, and I'm going offline with our questions because I love where we're going. What do you think about disabilities that are not visible? So we have, students in wheelchairs and, we have students that are visually impaired or are deaf. What about autistic students? And I know this is part of your training and your schooling. How do we dyslexia? When I was in school, I wouldn't even have known that I had I was dyslexic because there were no special education was never part of our public school education in Nigeria. Like, what are your thoughts about that in terms of the continent and how we need to approach autism, ADD, ADHD, and all of that?
Yeah, I think as well, it's like you say, it is more of a challenge because it is this so-called invisible disability where, people can't see it. So I think, over my years working in Ghana, I've seen so much progression with awareness and knowledge of disability. And I think it's, particularly for children in wheelchairs, because people can really see that this child has disability and, they can kind of understand that. But then sometimes when they're meeting children with autism or ADHD or mental health conditions, it's still very confusing because you could look at that child and think they're typically developing. And then when they behave, that's not kind of in a way that you would expect them to. For someone who doesn't understand those kind of needs, it's confusing. And I think that's an area that really needs awareness in Ghana.
Yeah.
Because of course, they have this history of kind of the spiritual understanding of these disabilities and mental health as well. And, I think that's improved massively. I don't think they've got that view, but sometimes you still get those feelings of, witchcraft and spiritual reasons behind disability. So I think, a lot of it is just raising awareness, having the education, some nonverbal communication strategies, using visuals. I mean, we've done a lot of visuals with kids with autism in Ghana, and we work with this fantastic speech therapist, but he was using printed visuals, visual cards, visual boards from America and UK. And the kids and family were just not identifying with them because the foods shown on these cards were not foods that they would be eating in their families. These activities are not activities that they would be doing. Our toilets don't look the same as their toilets. So, right. Having these resources are specific to Ghana. That's what's really important, like developing visuals, developing communication apps, developing things that make sense to the child and gives them a way to communicate, I think is really important.
You made such an excellent point, because this is where culture and our education really have to meet. And I am hoping that this inclusive podcast will do that. I want to be able to bring, the research and the professionals, but I also want to be able to bring the fact that we're, African. How do our kids, how can they connect with what we're teaching them? And you make such an excellent point. I want you to talk a little bit about your team back in Ghana. I am so impressed with the fact that you said a speech language therapist and occupational therapy. And I mean, all these things that are necessary, and you have somehow have gathered a team together to make this work. This is special education at its core. I would really love you to talk about them, and feel free to brag on them too, because it's amazing work that is being done back in Ghana.
It is, and it's incredible, for people to choose that route in Ghana when it was pretty a non-existent route, when, the speech therapist chose to go into speech therapy. Mm-hmm. But what was speech therapy in Kumasi before he chose it? It's incredible. I think the physiotherapy route has been developing. And I think, again, that kind of goes back to the physical disabilities, having more awareness of that. Right. So physiotherapy has been developing for quite a long time in Kumasi, and they've got a really good team at the hospital, whereas speech therapy and occupational therapy is very new. And it's only in the past kind of 2 years that I've met speech therapists, occupational therapists. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is through this wonderful inclusive private school in Kumasi. I met the occupational therapist there. But the one area, again, that they're not trained in is the sensory integration. So that's kind of the area that we've gone in with. But, they're doing all the fine motor skills, the coordination, the balance, all of those things that are so necessary for a child to access education and daily living skills. So that's quite incredible. Our speech therapist, he's incredible. He's so passionate and he has such good rapport with the kids. Same as our physios, they just light up whenever they visit. It's just, they're so excited to have those people that understand them and interact with them and talk to them like they understand. Because I think so often we think nonverbal children don't understand, and it's not the case. It's not the case. And, you know, yes, they may have communication difficulties and there may be things that they struggle with, but so many kids, they appreciate when you kind of talk, you find their way to communicate and you can communicate with them effectively. It makes a massive difference.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That gives us a lot of hope to know that if we had the training, we probably can have more speech language therapists and occupational therapists. We just need that support and the resources, and then we can do all this on a local level. Is there anything else you would love us to know about Family First Ghana, where you can be reached, how people can contact you, in case people want to, just like that American family that helped Paul, want to reach out to you and see that this is an organization that's doing good work in Ghana, and I'd love to support that. Can you tell us more about that, or just anything you want us to know with what you do? And the organization?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, it's all about, that collaboration. The more people that are working together for the good of children, families, the better. Like, we need to all work together. And, we have a physiotherapist in the US that's working with us who advises if we don't know in Ghana. We have a vision specialist, because we work with a few children who have vision impairment in US as well. And she's actually at the moment, because everything's obviously gone online, so she's actually doing a vision assessment virtually on a child in Ghana at the moment to give a school strategies on how to work with vision impairment.
Wow.
So I think the collaboration is so important. We still work with a few children with neurofibromatosis, and we currently have a team of neurofibromatosis experts in Italy, UK, and Ghana. And we're kind of working out a way to get one child's medical care, possibly in Europe, from Ghana. And then how we can translate that into Ghana. I mean, there's a team of surgeons that have gone on some online conferences that we funded in Ghana to learn about neurofibromatosis. So we're now seeing how we can raise awareness of that in Ghana and get the medical care there so that children don't have to travel outside of Ghana to get it.
Oh, Rosie, you impress me. You and everyone who you're connected with, and how anyone who's listening to you can see that you are really the real deal, and you're not doing this for any kind of self-serving motives. And I just love when I come in contact with people like you and others that are really passionate about making disability awareness, in, just putting it front and center and just educating and really bringing it back to the fact that it's about the kids. It's about the kids with disabilities. It's about really giving them a chance to live, to be seen as just regular people. And just a little bit about something that I did that's connected to just you. And I think why, you give me such good energy, because I'm all about that sometimes, is that I started this maybe 4 years ago. Like, this wasn't what I thought I was going to be doing, but I am so, so blessed and so enriched, and really love when I find other people who really want to make a difference in the world with this, and just seeing you being genuine and authentic, and actually seeing rewards and the work being done. It's one thing to say, it's another thing for it to get done. And Family First Ghana is doing it. And you're a small organization that is moving mountains. And it's very impressive to see. And I'm very thankful for you, and to the country of Ghana, to the inclusive schools, and to your team, making a difference in these children's lives.
Yeah, I think my last point as well for Ghana, Africa, other countries is start talking about disability on the ground, just when you meet people. I think it's quite incredible how much over the past, years that I've been working in Ghana, that I'm chatting to someone at Ghanaian. I have a friend who's got a child that can't walk. I have a friend who's got a child who can't talk. And people, and now families, a lot of our mothers who have children with special needs, they've started talking about it in their communities. And we've actually managed to set up kind of a family support group of all parents who have kids with disabilities. They come together regularly. They talk about the small achievements that their child's make and how important that is for their families. And they can celebrate it together with parents who really understand. And I think the more we're talking about it, the more people are going to get interested in it, the more people are going to seek help. And the more we seek help, the more medical facilities will have to adapt and offer those kind of programs. Schools will have to adapt and offer special education. And I think the more we talk about it, the more awareness we can build, the more we can support families.
Thank you, Rosie. I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you for all the information, the insight, the wisdom, the knowledge coming from you at, just being such a positive influence in your generation and making a difference in the world. Thank you. And on a lighter note, as we end the interview, so I'm going to ask you just one question. Or I'll make it two. What do you like about Ghana and maybe places that you've been in Ghana? You have a few places you can tell us?
I think Ghana is the most vibrant, fantastic country. It's so welcoming. There's so much culture, so much to learn. It's incredible. And of course, I love Kumasi, which is where I work. And I always stay with the same family who have become like family to me. And I have so many great memories with the kids. It's very busy. There's a lot of traffic, hustle and bustle.
Yes.
So I really love some weekend trips to Cape Coast, which is just an incredible fishing port and so much history there. And I think there's so much to explore in Ghana. So many places that I haven't explored yet that I'd love to.
Oh, awesome. So I'm gonna put you on the spot. Ghanaian jollof rice or Nigerian jollof rice?
Ghanaian for me. I was thinking this earlier. I was thinking my favorite food and I was going to say jollof rice, but I thought there might be some kind of competition there.
Oh, I love it. You know what, Rosie? Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love that you can have a good laugh with it. Thank you so much for being on the show. I would love to obviously have another conversation with you later. And thank you, Family First, Ghana, and your team back home in Ghana and where you are in the UK. And we're very appreciative. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you.
And thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing this podcast. I think it's so important that we start raising that awareness.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Miss IJ's Kids Inclusive Podcast this week. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so on our website at www.ijpopoola.com. Or if you want to write to us about topics you would love to hear covered on the show, the email address is popoloijelma@gmail.com, one word. And if you'd like to follow us on our social media pages, it's at Miss IJ's Kids. I am IJ Popoola, and you've listened to Miss IJ's Kids Inclusive Podcast.